The Gregorian calendar, the most widely used calendar system in the world today, was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 as a reform of the Julian calendar. The main purpose of this reform was to correct the discrepancy between the civil year and the solar year, caused by the fact that the Julian calendar overestimated the length of the solar year by approximately 11 minutes. The Gregorian calendar is divided into 12 months, each with a specific number of days. January, March, May, July, August, October, and December have 31 days. April, June, September, and November have 30 days, and February normally has 28 days, but every 4 years, during a leap year, it has 29 days. This results in a common year of 365 days and a leap year of 366 days. The introduction of the leap year is one of the most important features of the Gregorian calendar. Every 4 years, an additional day is added to February to compensate for the nearly 6 extra hours that accumulate each solar year of approximately 365.2422 days. However, to avoid excessive addition of days over time, the leap year rule was refined. Years divisible by 100 are not leap years unless they are also divisible by 400. This means that while 1900 was not a leap year, 2000 was. This division into months and the inclusion of leap years helps keep our calendar in sync with the seasons. Important dates, such as solstices and equinoxes, remain approximately on the same dates over the years, which is crucial for agriculture and social organization. In addition to monthly divisions, the Gregorian calendar is organized into weeks of 7 days, a practice that dates back to various ancient cultures and was widely adopted under the influence of Christianity. Each week includes a cycle of 7 days, starting on Sunday and ending on Saturday, with Sunday traditionally considered the first day of the week in many countries. The adoption of the Gregorian calendar was not immediate worldwide. Many Catholic countries adopted it shortly after its introduction in 1582, but Protestant and Orthodox countries, among others, took longer to make the change. For example, Britain and its colonies adopted the Gregorian calendar only in 1752, and Russia adopted it after the Revolution of 1917. Today, the Gregorian calendar is widely accepted and used globally, serving as the basis for civil timekeeping and for marking religious, social, and economic events. It is an example of how a significant reform can endure and standardize time effectively, facilitating communication and coordination across different parts of the world. Before the introduction of the Gregorian calendar, people used a variety of dating systems to refer to years. These systems varied widely depending on culture, region, and historical context. Some of the most common methods included the Roman calendar. In ancient Rome, years were often referred to according to the founding of the city of Rome, known as Ab Urbe Condita, AUC, which means from the founding of the city. This system dated years from 753 BC, the traditionally accepted year of Rome's foundation. Reigns of monarchs. In many cultures, especially in Europe and the Middle East, years were often counted according to the reigns of monarchs. For example, an event could be dated as in the 10th year of the reign of King so-and-so. This system was common in places like ancient Egypt, where years were counted from the accession to the throne of each pharaoh. Greek Olympiads. The ancient Greeks used the Olympic Games as a time reference. Each Olympiad, held every 4 years, was numbered sequentially. Thus, events could be dated as occurring during the third Olympiad. For example, Julian calendar. Before the Gregorian calendar, the Julian calendar, introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BC, was widely used in the Roman Empire and later in Europe. This calendar also used a system of years based on the founding of Rome, AUC, and the reigns of emperors. Era of the Martyrs. In Egypt, during the Coptic Christian period, years were counted from the beginning of the era of the Martyrs in AD 284, marking the rise of Emperor Diocletian, known for his persecution of Christians. Local and regional eras. Many cultures had their own local eras. For example, in India, various regional calendars counted years from important events in their own cultural and religious traditions, such as the Saka era and the Vikram Sambat era. Year of the World. Some systems, especially used by Jewish and Christian chroniclers, counted years from an estimated date of the creation of the world. This system is known as Anno Mundi, AM. The Bible does not explicitly use a system of counting years before Christ, as it was written before the development of the Gregorian calendar and the concepts of before Christ, BC, and anno Domini, AD. However, it provides a chronology through historical narratives, genealogies, and significant events. The counting of years in the Bible is addressed in various ways. Genealogies. The Bible often uses genealogies to mark the passage of time. In the book of Genesis, for example, the lineage from Adam to Noah and from Noah to Abraham is described in detail, including the ages of the patriarchs when they fathered their children and when they died. This helps create a chronological timeline of events. Significant events. Many biblical events are dated in relation to other important events. For example, the construction of Solomon's temple is described as occurring in the 4th year of Solomon's reign and 480 years after the Israelites left Egypt. 1 Kings 6 verse 1. Reigns of monarchs. In the historical books of the Old Testament, years are often counted in relation to the reigns of the kings of Israel and Judah. For example, events are situated in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, or in the 20th year of Asa, king of Judah. Eras and periods. Some periods are defined by significant events, such as the Babylonian exile. Prophets like Jeremiah and Daniel often date their prophecies in relation to these events. For example, Daniel 1 verse 1 mentions the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, as the time when Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. The biblical chronology, therefore, is based on a combination of genealogies, significant events, and the reigns of monarchs. This method of counting is internal to the biblical text and does not use a global era like we have today with the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is divided into 2 major eras, before Christ, BC, and anno Domini, AD. Also known as before Common Era, BCE, and Common Era, CE, in more secular terminologies. The purpose of creating this division was to provide a dating system centralized on an event of great religious and historical significance to the Christian world. Dionysius Exiguus developed this system to replace the previous practice of using the year of the founding of Rome or the reigns of Roman emperors as reference points. The transition point between the 2 eras is the year AD 1, immediately after the year 1 BC, with no year 0 between them. This choice is due to the absence of the concept of zero in the counting of years at the time the system was created. Therefore, the sequence of years transitions directly from 1 BC to 1 AD. The designation before Christ refers to the years preceding the birth of Jesus, while anno Domini, AD, refers to the years following his birth. This demarcation is used to date historical events, documents, and significant occurrences throughout history. The adoption of the calendar with this division had profound implications for historical chronology and time organization. It allowed for a standardization of year counting, facilitating communication and documentation of historical events. This standardization proved especially useful during the Middle Ages and the modern era, when Christian Europe began to expand its global influence. Over time, the use of the abbreviations BC and AD was widely adopted not only in the Christian world but also in other cultures and regions due to European expansion and the international standardization of the Gregorian calendar. Today, this division continues to be used in historical, academic, and scientific contexts, although some secular alternatives, such as BCE and CE, are increasingly common to avoid direct religious connotations. These alternatives are especially used in international and intercultural contexts. In summary, the division of the Gregorian calendar into before and after Christ reflects the centrality of Jesus' birth in the historical chronology used by many countries over the centuries, facilitating the unification and standardization of year counting in an increasingly interconnected world. The choice of the year 1 in the Gregorian calendar is directly linked to the work of the monk Dionysius Exiguus in the 6th century. Dionysius was tasked by Pope John I to create a new dating system to replace the calendar based on the founding of Rome and the years of the reigns of Roman emperors, especially for calculating Easter dates more accurately. Dionysius decided to use the birth of Jesus Christ as the reference point for this new dating system. To determine the year of Jesus' birth, Dionysius analyzed scriptures and historical documents available in his time. He concluded that Jesus would have been born 525 years before the year he was performing his calculations, thus fixing the year 1 AD in his calendar. However, this dating did not include the concept of the year zero, which was not known or used in year counting at that time. Thus, the sequence goes directly from 1 BC to 1 AD. It is important to note that Dionysius's determination is not considered accurate by modern historical standards. Contemporary research suggests that Jesus may have been born a few years before the date established by Dionysius, possibly between 4 and 6 BC, based on other historical evidence, such as the reign of King Herod. Despite these uncertainties, Dionysius's dating was widely adopted by the Church and eventually by the Western world. When the Gregorian calendar was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, it maintained this reference for year counting, further consolidating the system of before and after Christ. The adoption of AD 1 and the subsequent counting of years around the birth of Jesus Christ had a lasting impact on chronology and the standardization of time, providing a common basis for historical documentation and global event coordination. Some countries use calendars other than the Gregorian for civil, religious, or cultural purposes. However, it is important to note that the Gregorian calendar is widely used worldwide for international and official purposes, such as in trade, diplomacy, and science. Some examples of countries and regions that use other calendars include Saudi Arabia uses the Islamic calendar, also known as the Hijri calendar, for religious purposes and some civil matters. The Islamic calendar is a lunar calendar, counting years from the Hijra, the migration of the Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina in 622 AD. However, for international administrative and commercial purposes, the Gregorian calendar is also used. Iran and Afghanistan use the Persian or solar Hijri calendar for most civil purposes. This calendar is a solar calendar, with the year beginning at the spring equinox. It is considered one of the most accurate calendars in use today. The Gregorian calendar is also used, especially in international contexts. Ethiopia uses the Ethiopian calendar, which is a solar calendar with 12 months of 30 days each and a 13th month that can have 5 or 6 days. The Ethiopian year begins in September in the Gregorian calendar. Ethiopia also uses the Gregorian calendar for international purposes. Nepal uses the Bikram Sambat calendar for most civil purposes. This calendar is a lunar solar calendar, with the year beginning in April in the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is mainly used for international and administrative purposes. Bangladesh uses the Bengali calendar for cultural purposes and some civil matters. The Bengali calendar is a solar calendar, beginning in mid-April. For official and international purposes, the Gregorian calendar is widely used. In addition to these countries, many others use traditional calendars for religious and cultural purposes. For example, the Hebrew calendar is used in Israel to determine the dates of Jewish holidays, and the Hindu calendar is widely used in India for festivals and religious celebrations. Subscribe to our channel to receive new videos and leave your like. Until the next video,